Hey friends, it's Jeannie for Not Too Shabby, and I am sharing some inspiration using the October subscription box. Although this box is sold out, I know a bunch of people were able to get their hands on it, and I wanted to share a fun idea using the contents of the box. Originally, when I created this card, I went in thinking I wanted to do a scene card per usual. I kind of deviated from that just a little bit. I am still stamping out a little scene, which is 2 cups sitting on a table. So I went ahead and stamped out this first cup with a gnome inside, and then also stamped it on a mask because I wanted the second cup to be behind this cup. And whenever you want something to be behind each other, you have to mask it off or you're going to have overlapping lines. So once I did all my masking for the 2 cups, I really didn't even need to cut that second mask out. I just needed it for the first one. I am picking out my pattern paper because I was looking at the pattern paper packs and they had very basic, subtle designs and they were perfect for these cups. And so what I did was I picked out the green pattern paper and this like light red pattern paper. So for the 2 patterns, I'm going to stamp the cups directly onto them and I will cut them out later. So then I decided that I also wanted to use a pattern paper for the background, and in order to do that I had to stamp the images exactly as my main card base onto that blue pattern paper that I will be using for the background. And it was super useful to use the Misti to do this because I already had removed the stamps from it and I needed to line it up exactly the same. So if you have a stamp positioner in your life, you know that it saves you so much trouble if you don't get a good stamp image on it the first time, or if you have to do something like this. So I'm going to spare you my fussy cutting. It does take a bit of time, but these images were fairly easy to cut out. Before I worked on cutting out my background, I also realized I needed the lines for the tables. I threw them in my Misti, used my ruler to draw a line across the card so it matched perfectly with both the background and my card base. Here is where I also realized that I needed to cut out more of that red cup. That's mainly because the gnome cup was right in front. So I put it back into my Misti, lined it all up, stamped my image directly onto that red cup, and I will also cut that out. The Misti definitely saved me in this card, and I am going to go ahead and work on my paper piecing. After I did my cutting for my paper piecing, I grabbed my Memento Tuxedo black marker and edged up all the little edges for all the little bits and pieces that I had cut out. This just helps make everything look cohesive because when you do cut paper, you'll see the white on the edge and the black marker just really makes everything look like one unit. So if you're looking at this card at the very end, it almost looks like I colored in this pattern paper myself. So before I go into my Copic coloring, I use my Copic friendly pen to draw that line for the table, and then I am all set. For my coloring today, I am using my Copic markers, just coloring up a few items on this card. It is just the table, the gnome that's in the cup, and then the bow and the lip on the second cup behind. Everything else will be using the pattern paper to create this card, and I am so happy I decided to do this. I don't do this often enough, but I probably should because I have a ton of pattern paper. Even though I know I don't use it, I like to hoard it, so I'm trying my very best to actually use the paper that I have, and this is a great way to do it, especially if you have a lot of images with coloring space. You definitely can cut it out and it looks like you spent so much time coloring the images. So for the table, I just use some squiggly lines to make that table look like it looks like wood. It was just really easy to do. So I'm doing more coloring for the gnome's little beard and then his nose, and then I move on to his hat, which is not the best color choice in my opinion because I decided to go with yellow, and then I decided to go with black stripes, which ended up making the gnome hat look like a bumblebee. And that wasn't the look I was going for, and we'll actually fix that later by coloring over the yellow with red. The red just fit a lot better with the whole Christmas theme. It kind of matches the second mug. It is a darker red, but I think it works better than the yellow because sometimes I just make bad choices, and this time was one of the bad choices that I have made. For the little poof ball on top of the gnome's hat, I went with green so it would match the cup. And I also used the same greens for the bows on top of that second mug behind, as well as the lip, because I thought that the lip just would look better with a solid color. For the mugs themselves, I also used my Copic markers because I already had the colors out to add a bit of dimension and a bit of shadow. So I just did on the edges where the shadows would be, and you definitely don't have to do this. I just had the markers out, so I decided to add that extra element to it. Yeah. So for the lip and the bow, I just used the same green color just so everything matched. I have a tendency to use the same colors just because I want everything cohesive, and when I add additional colors it ends up like the bumblebee, so I try to stick with the same colors. This is the easiest part, is just to put all the pieces together, and you'll see that I use some double-sided adhesive as well as liquid glue, but for paper piecing I strongly recommend liquid glue because it just has more give. It allows you to move it because it's wet. If you accidentally place it down and it's not the exact positioning that you need. So for the mugs and the little tiny pieces for the backgrounds in between the mug handles, I use liquid glue because it was just easier to deal with. If you mess up, you can move it around. It just makes it easy. As I put together this card, everything looks so good, and I don't know why I don't do more paper piecing, because every time I do it I end up really loving it. It just makes it look so much cooler, because honestly if I were to color this, the mugs would have been a solid color and there wouldn't have been extra patterns or anything like that. I am so happy that I chose to use pattern paper for this, and the ones that were in the kit were really cute anyway. They did have busier designs on the back of them because they are double-sided, but I'm happy with how this turned out. I had pulled out one of the pieces from Gnome Sweet Gnome that had Happy Holidays written all over it, and that was kind of busy, but I decided to use it for my card anyway. It peeks from the top and the bottom, and it's perfect because you know what it says. For the sentiment, I stamped it out on white cardstock and I just put it on the card. That completes the entire card. So I hope you got some inspiration, and maybe you'll try your hand at paper piecing as well. I will see you guys next time with another one. Have a great day. Bye.